Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole of February 9th, 2025. Long before Canada or British Columbia existed, the Shaanu and Sauk First Nations lived in relationship with the lands and waters that sustain life in what is now Metchosin. We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territories of the Shaanu and Sauk Nations. The District Metchosin recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples past, present, and future, and is committed to continuing to learn, listen, and act in support of truth and reconciliation. As we discuss the governance of our community this evening, we do this with respect for the lands on which we gather and deliberate. Mayor Little, do you have a few words?
Yes, thank you. As everybody knows, this will be the last Committee of the Whole meeting for our fire chief. On behalf of council and staff, I just want to again say that you are going to be sorely missed. There are big shoes to fill, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Excuse me. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all the service that you've given us over the last 20 years. It really is a remarkable legacy that you've left, and I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will now reconvene to the agenda. Committee before you, we have an agenda for approval. Are there any amendments?
Yes, move adoption of the agenda. I'd like to propose an amendment to move item 7.1.1, which is the 2026 grant and aids for previously tax-exempt properties, to item number 4. So just move it up right behind the presentations, then public participation, and then the item 7.1.1.
Okay, so you want this before public participation?
No, after.
After, okay.
Just right after.
Great.
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
Okay, moved by Mayor Little, second by Councillor Shukin. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have presentations. This is the grant and aid presentations for the permissive tax exemptions from the following groups. And I will call you up individually if you'd like to come to the podium. For those of you who have PowerPoints, you were given, I think, some directions to our Deputy Corporate Officer, and she will have those on the screen at that time. For those who do not, that's okay. Continue with your presentation. So the first one we have is St. Mary's of the Incarnation Church. Step forward, and there's a little button, and the red light will go on when it's the mic is on. Thank you.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Mayor, councillors, thank you for the invitation to talk. Heloise and I are members of the congregation. I'm a retired deacon. My family moved to Metchosin in the 1980s, and Heloise and her family moved about a decade ago. She will speak after me. For the 150th anniversary of St. Mary's in 23, I interviewed many of the older members of the congregation about growing up and living here. And I remember something especially that Isabel Tipton told me. When St. Mary of the Incarnation, which we still call the new church because it's only 35 years old, when it was built, it was financed and constructed both by members of the congregation and by residents of Metchosin who had nothing to do with the church. And we try to remember that now. Sure, we gather there for church services and events. Equally, we host many activities, the Raccoon Den, child care, music events, even the tradition of learning to drive, teenagers driving around in the parking lot, where religious affiliation is irrelevant. We're determined to keep it that way for a few centuries more at least, God willing, and Bilston Creek don't rise.
I'm here as well because I'm concerned about the public consequences of what could befall St. Mary's as a community organization that does a great amount of service, spiritual, and the many things that Wally has just explained for Metchosin. I wanted to read out a prayer that I actually did for Prayers of the People yesterday for our congregation, and it seems like a good place to start. Gracious God, we commend the public servants who shape the daily life of Metchosin. Give them wisdom to govern with acuity and humility. We pray for community energy to take part, to stand up, and to always work to make our corner of Vancouver Island beautiful, welcoming, and supportive of its members. In peace, let us pray to God, saying, God, hear our prayer.
Do we want to engage in questions now, or? At 7.1.1, rate following, yes, okay. And the next organization is the BC Parks Foundation. Welcome to the podium. Okay, so they may be coming in a little bit later, so we'll move on to the next group, which is the BC SPCA Wild Ark. Press the button and the red light will go on.
Sorry.
There you are.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Andrea Wallace, and I am the Wild Animal Welfare Manager for the BC SPCA. And I'm here with colleagues and volunteers from Wild Ark to represent Wild Ark tonight. The video that's playing here silently is just to give everyone here tonight a chance to see what goes on behind the scenes at Wild Ark, while I share more about our objectives and the mission and our connection to the Metchosin community. Wild Ark is a very special place. It's the only wild animal rehabilitation center that is operated by the BC SPCA, and it's the only center of its kind on southern Vancouver Island. Wild Ark provides care for over 2,000 injured, sick, and orphaned wild animals each year, and about 8 to 10% of those animals are admitted directly from the Metchosin community. We treat each animal in our care as an individual case with the goal of releasing recovered animals back into the wild and or to end the suffering of those animals that can't be saved. Since opening in 1997, Wild Ark has cared for over 61,000 wild animals, providing services to all CRD communities, but of course we have a special place in our heart for the Metchosin community. We have permits from the provincial and federal government to treat an average of 135 different species each year, everything from baby hummingbirds to eagles and great blue herons, and from squirrels to raccoons, river otters, and deer fawns, as well as the occasional reptile and amphibian. Threatened and endangered species are also among the species that we admit, and we contribute to conservation efforts for these species with every animal that we're able to treat and return to the wild. For example, last year we had a western painted turtle that was admitted to Wild Ark after someone had found it with a fish hook embedded in its beak. After about 6 weeks of care, that turtle was recovered from its injuries, and we were able to release to the wild. This is the kind of impact that Wild Ark has. Most of the animals coming into Wild Ark need help because of something related to human activity. Things like collisions with vehicles, windows, or buildings, getting caught by free-roaming cats or off-leash dogs, or like that western painted turtle, getting entangled in fishing line or hooks. We work every day to reduce the human impact. If it weren't for Wild Ark, these animals would have nowhere else to go. Wild Ark and other BC SPCA teams also work to raise awareness about these issues, demonstrate how humans and wildlife can respectfully coexist, and advocate for wild animals, their habitats, and their welfare. WildArk is also an integrated member of the Metchosin community. We participate in local activities, contribute to local newsletters and papers, provide opportunities for people to volunteer, develop skills as emerging animal care professionals, and provide employment opportunities for youth. Out of 185 volunteers and 17 year-round staff, we have about 20 active volunteers and 2 staff living in Metchosin, and an average of 9 international volunteers each year are placed within Metchosin homestays during their full-time volunteer experience with us, which is usually for 2 to 3 months. And just to put that all in perspective, last year volunteers donated over 17,000 hours of their time, which pretty much is equivalent to 9 full-time staff. We pride ourselves on residing in Metchosin, a municipality that respects wildlife as much as we do. And 28 years later, many Metchosin residents continue to bring trimmings from their properties, rescue wildlife, and contribute to our work. This hardworking team of staff, volunteers, and community members all play a vital role in ensuring smooth operations at WildArk. It may surprise some to know that despite providing a public service, WildArk operations are not government funded, and our permits do not allow us to charge for our services. We rely entirely on donations from compassionate community members and businesses. Despite this generous support we receive, WildArk runs at a deficit each year and relies on the financial assistance from the broader BC SPCA's provincial revenue sources to supplement our local fundraising initiatives. The annual property tax exemptions WildArk has received for many years have been a significant contribution and are still very much needed to continue our life-saving work. And we encourage Council to restore the reliable and predictable permissive tax exemptions in future years. Thank you again for the Council's consideration of our application for grant and aid funding this year, and for supporting WildArk and the wildlife in need that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Metchosin Hall Society, please. Oh, you just turned it off. There you go.
Mayor and Council, my name is Yvonne Becker, Liberty Drive, Metchosin, and I'm president of the Metchosin Hall Society, speaking on its behalf. I want to be clear that we're here tonight in support of our grant application because we have no alternative, but we do not see the grant and aid approach as a real solution. What is before you is a temporary patch, not a fix for us. For generations, the Metchosin Community Hall operated under a permissive tax exemption. That exemption was never part of the residential tax base, so removing it did not lower residents' taxes. It simply shifted funds within the budget while transferring financial risk onto our volunteer-run nonprofits. The hall is a community-owned asset, held in trust and operated entirely by volunteers. The staff report acknowledges that, and if we paid property taxes previously, our net income would have dropped to zero. That leaves no margin for maintenance, safety, or long-term planning. The new grant model replaces a stable bylaw with annual uncertainty for us. Grants must be reapplied for, are not guaranteed, and cover only the municipal portion of taxes, leaving the non-municipal portion as a new and ongoing burden. Volunteers are now required to spend time on applications and justification instead of serving the community. This is not efficiency. It adds bureaucracy placed on people who already give their time freely. There is also a deeper concern when long-standing community partners must apply every year for discretionary funding. It creates pressure to remain agreeable and publicly grateful. This is not a healthy foundation for community stewardship. The impacts are already being felt. Programs are worried about fee increases. Renters are uncertain whether they can stay. If programs leave, the hall loses rental income then, and the effects compound. We submit the grant in good faith because the hall cannot absorb the change without harm, but approving it tonight does not resolve the underlying issue. We are asking Council to restore a predictable lawful, permissive tax exemption framework going forward, one that provides stability, respects volunteer capacity, and recognizes that volunteers are part of Metchosin's infrastructure and not an afterthought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is the YMCA-YWCA Vancouver Island. Yes.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks very much for this opportunity to come to speak to council. My name is Derek Gent. I'm the CEO of the YMCA-YWCA Vancouver Island, and I brought Luke Ferris, who's the longtime camp manager up at Camp Thunderbird. And I especially appreciate the mayor and Councillor Shukin reaching out to us earlier and having, I think, a similar conversation between us, and now an opportunity to share that with the broader public, and a mutual acknowledgement that we kind of let this relationship slide, and this is a great next step in making sure that we don't continue to do that. So I really applaud you for inviting us here today to talk to you, to talk to the community, and really share the value of the work that we do. We've been operating for over 90 years up at Camp Thunderbird since 1935, providing literally thousands and thousands of kids an essential and formative outdoor experience and a connection with others that like literally spans generations. You got grandparents whose grandkids are coming to Camp Thunderbird now. We're also stewards of over 1,200 acres of really very important culturally and ecologically sensitive lands, together with the Saucon Nations, who we're growing our relationship with. This site is actively being used for Indigenous education, land-based learning, and ceremony through a lot of work with the local school district. We also allow hikers access, so a lot of people come up and access our lands at Camp Thunderbird. The other piece of information that we really want to iterate at this meeting and share is just the financial reality that Camp Thunderbird specifically, and we included the financial statements just for camp as opposed to the broader YMCA-YWCA and all the various programs we operate. The budget you see and the financial statements that we prepared do not include the additional costs from the removal of property tax exemption. Just isolating camp operations alone, we incurred like a $225,000 loss last year, and our forecast for the upcoming year is about the same. Going back a few years, when the pandemic hit, it was particularly tough on our organization. We managed to get camp up and running again because we're able to access for day use, but a tremendous financial hit to the organization that we're still sort of digging our way out from in terms of the organization itself. More nonprofit than we'd like, I said. And camp is just really challenging to run. We haven't cut corners or jacked up the prices as you might try to do. Despite all the inflationary pressure, we want to ensure that we've got a safe, healthy, and accessible development opportunity for all those kids that come up to camp. We really see that camp just nurtures those essential social skills, the leadership capacity, and the broader awareness of the value of nature and being outside, for not just for campers, but for counselors too. We regularly hear from the parents of both our staff and the campers that their kid came back a different person. The land itself, as I mentioned, we believe is sacred. Chief Planis always used to say to me that the land needs to rest. That's what we need to do with it, is it just needs to exist for its own purpose. We in the fall, we brought up folks from the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness for land-based healing programs, a harm reduction program, just to bring Indigenous people back to the land and actually have a tremendous healing impact. But to be honest, it's harder and harder to justify continuing the operation when we go to our board and we look at the financial viability of all of this. Paying property taxes really exacerbates that conversation every year for us through what's always a very difficult decision. I'll just add a point that I shared with Mayor and Councillor Shukin. Additional challenge that we're battling that some of you may have seen in the paper is that we have several ongoing lawsuits from the landowners north of camp who have been petitioning for a number of years to build a public highway right through the middle of camp for real estate development on Ragged Mountain. They've discovered recently that the mining legislation is more permissive than road building legislation, so they've staked a number of mining claims And we're having to battle all of these through legal channels that, again, contribute to the financial challenges that we're facing. But we fervently believe that we need to protect this land. The mining claims that they've staked are in Glint's Lake. Like, that's our drinking water. We absolutely need to protect this. So we are doing everything we can to do that. And we encourage your help and solidarity in trying to do that. We really don't want to sell the land, as has happened to a lot of other Y camps across the country. Last story for me, we have a group of hikers who also go and play golf every week, and they've chosen Camp Thunderbird as their charity of choice. So I was at a check presentation in the fall, and where they were fervently proud that they sort of added up what they contributed to Camp Thunderbird over the last decade or so, and it was about $50,000. And then they were pretty crestfallen to hear that that would maybe just cover the property taxes that we're expecting to pay the next year. And fundraising for this type of thing is nearly impossible. I'll let Luke tell you a little bit more about life at camp, but I really appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thanks, Derek. I wanted to mention a couple of things to everybody. I'm sure everyone in the room understands that in this day and age, there's increasing pressure and frustration and difficulty for young people everywhere we look. And one of the ways that children and youth are suffering these days is with the bombardment of technology. And Thunderbird is a technology-free zone. And I have to let you know that it's no joke when they arrive at Camp Thunderbird for a week or two and we take their phones away and lock them in the office. They go through very real withdrawal. And it's shocking to see, it's really upsetting to see, and it just reinforces for me how important these experiences at places like Camp Thunderbird are for young people today. And I can't imagine a world in 50 years if children and youth don't continue to have opportunities to go and sit by a creek and swim in a lake and hike to the top of a mountain and see wildlife all around them. Two of our most significant injuries last summer were really shocking to me, startling to me, and also kind of wonderful in some ways. And those were, they were attacks by owls. Owls were protecting their nests, and they actually dive bombed a child and a staff member. And they're doing just fine. I want you to know that everyone's fine. But you know, if your child is going to be injured, that might be one of the best ways you could possibly have your child be injured, I think. The other thing I wanted to mention is that my history or my connection to Metchosin and Camp Thunderbird is very long. I started there when I was 19 as a camp counselor. I'm 51 now. And I've been the manager at Thunderbird since 2005. And it was almost exactly 20 years ago that I was invited to come here and talk about something that related to our permissive tax exemption at the time. And that was that we had initiated a forestry program at Thunderbird. And the reason we had done it was out of desperation. We were desperate for funds, and people kept saying, well, you've got a forest that's full of marketable timber. You should harvest some of that, and you should sell it, and you should use it to invest in your programs. And we initiated that program, and then I came here and I came to talk about it, and I heard a very strong voice from council members at the time, and probably some of you residents were here as well. And the message was really clear. Like, we want to support Camp Thunderbird. We want to help Camp Thunderbird stop cutting trees down there, and we'll figure out a way to make it work up there. We don't want to go back to anything like that. We don't want to look at potentially selling off that land or having to close the Camp Thunderbird operations. We're doing great things there, and I know that the Metchosin residents and council members want to support it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so representatives from the Victoria Motorcycle Club.
Mayor Little, council, staff, members of the Metchosin public, thank you very much for giving me an audience tonight to speak on behalf of the Victoria Motorcycle Club. My name is Graham Twigg, and I am the treasurer of the VMC. So for those who don't know, the VMC is one of the oldest motorcycling clubs in Canada, founded in 1912. And its aim is to foster the sport of recreational motorcycling in all its facets. Most particularly, though, relevant to our conversation is off-road motorcycling. So for the 2026 season, we have 434 members, spanning all ages. It really is an all ages organization, family friendly, ranging from 4 years old to 84. I was actually corrected. We actually have a 90-year-old member not actively riding, but nonetheless. And about a third of those members are seniors or youth. Approximately 20% of the membership are Metchosin based, with the balance coming from all over the South Island. We are very much a volunteer-run organization with no paid positions. The focus of much of the club's activities takes place at its property at 4200 Happy Valley Road, just up the road here, where the club owns 2 parcels of land, 160 acres of forested land and 12 acres of partially cleared land that the club has owned since 1962. Since that time, it's been maintained in virtually the same forested condition since it was purchased, which makes it one of the largest contiguous private forested land parcels in Metchosin. And the VMC very much endeavors to be good stewards of that land and good neighbors. So we have a number of self-imposed rules and regulations in terms of riding hours, club-imposed closure of the forested property of the land during the high-risk fire season. So that means that for most of the summer, the riding is completely off limits because we don't want to run the risk of any spark forest fires. Voluntary limit on club membership. So post-pandemic or during pandemic, we had a very large increase in club membership, and we actually voluntarily throttled that in order to reduce the impact on the land. And we are very much dedicated to making sure that our membership understands that they are stewards of this property. So every new member has to go through extensive training on respecting the club boundaries as well as the etiquette. And most importantly, every member has to put in substantial contribution of hours annually in order primarily to maintain that property for sustainable use for generations to come. In terms of the Metchosin community and how the VMC interacts with that, we are proud to be able to support both the fire department and the search and rescue, Metchosin Search and Rescue, who both organizations which use the property regularly for training purposes. And we don't levy any fees for that. It's something that's somewhat unique in that some of the activities that both of those organizations are conducting in terms of training, they need large amounts of space that is actually segregated from the public. So it's not really fit for performing those sorts of training activities in a park where you may have lay people coming in and possibly interfering with it. We're also proud to partner with the YMCA-YWCA Scout Group, who is able to receive the proceeds from the food service of our associated with our Hill Climb event. And then in terms of catering to the general public, we have a number of events throughout the years, various competitive trials, and the Hill Climb event where the public at large is welcome to come and enjoy the property for no charge. So we have been the grateful beneficiary of the permissive tax exemption policy since 2022, and here to say that we are hopeful that the non-municipal portion of our 2026 and beyond taxes might also be covered by way of the grant in aid program. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And do we have anybody that has arrived since we started from the BC Parks Foundation that would like to speak? Okay, seeing that we do not have any further presentations, we'll move on to public participation. We ask anyone that would like to speak to come to the mic. You have 4 minutes to talk, and we ask that you state your name and the street in which you live, and that you be respectful in how you present yourself to the council, staff, and the visitors that are here this evening. Please feel free to come and make comment at the mic at this time.
Madam Chair, I think the mic is on already. Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
So good evening. My name is Morgan Yates. I'm a Metchosin resident of Gemini Drive. And like many others in the audience this evening, I work as a volunteer with local nonprofit groups. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for identifying a mechanism to mitigate the unintended harm caused by last September's decision to reduce tax exemptions for nonprofit agencies by about 50%. Last September's decision was not intended to cause harm. However, it did. In such instances, a worthwhile response is to consider mistakes as learning opportunities. So in that spirit and looking at root causes, here are 4 things that could be done differently and better going forward. Last year, local nonprofits were viewed as math problems to be solved and financial burdens to be reduced. This was one-sided. A November 2025 study published by the Victoria Foundation shows that the socioeconomic benefits delivered by nonprofits offset their costs to taxpayers by an average factor of 40 to 1. Please review this study. Please also engage proactively with nonprofits to better understand the value they bring to our community, in particular before making decisions that may affect them. Number 2, members of our district administration team who don't live here or who don't have longer-term Metchosin roots deserve the opportunity to learn more about our local culture and community through direct guidance and support from council. Our community operates a lot like a Gulf island. We are structurally very different from Langford or Colwood. Our tax base is dominantly residential, and a sizable chunk of that is constrained by provincial farm tax status. In turn, that means that our administrative staff complement has historically been very lean, and that many community services have been reliant on support from our nonprofit agencies and their volunteers. This is not a bad thing. Volunteerism provides numerous community benefits, but it does mean that a superficial analysis would show that our per capita granting of permissive tax exemptions is higher than in adjacent urban communities. So number 3, within the remainder of this council's term and or in future terms in which you may serve, please don't make significant policy or financial decisions on the basis of a slim 3-person majority vote of council. Big decisions should be discussed and debated until they get closer to achieving a consensus view among all council members. That supports our community. Number 4 and final, if a council decision is made on the basis of incomplete information, and if important new information becomes available following that decision, please take advantage of Section 131 of the BC Community Charter. Within defined and reasonable time constraints, Section 131 allows a community's mayor to initiate reconsideration and reversal of a previously approved council resolution. So in closing, thank you again for your attention, and thank you again for your intention to employ the grant and aid mechanism to mitigate for this current year adverse impacts on the nonprofit agencies that serve our community. I also hope that you will take steps later this year to reinstate full permissive tax exemptions for 2027. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're still on here. Yeah, you can move the mic down if you like. There you are.
Okay. My name is Bev Hall. I live on Sandgate Road. I'm here to support grants and aid for all the charitable organizations involved. I'm directing my comments only as an example to the application of the BC Parks Foundation, who aren't here, but I will speak for them. I'm not officially speaking for them, because after 9 years as a director on the board of Metchosin Foundation, I have a firm understanding of the importance to Metchosin of relationships with other charitable organizations. Trust builds slowly. Money is limited. Metchosin citizens simply cannot financially support the purchase of large properties for the protection of valuable and increasingly rare biodiversity. Such properties exist in very few areas of the Lower Island, except in Metchosin. Partnering with charitable organizations, which have money for such purchases, depends on tax-free exemptions from the community, and they receive these from other communities on the island and in other parts of the province. Without this policy in place in Metchosin, the loss to current and future taxpayers is huge. The money goes elsewhere, and hard-won trust is destroyed. Please be generous with the grants and aid, and review the current policy on tax exemptions for charitable organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
June Reimer, 4730 Marydale Road. Okay. Well, first off, I hardly feel I need to speak tonight because the presenters have done such a wonderful job. So I'd really like to thank everyone that has spoken and for council for calling this meeting. At first, I've kind of had a lot of things going on in my life, and I'm not even staying in Metchosin tonight, but I came, and I'm so glad that I came to the meeting. And I first was, I can't believe this is still going on. But having been here, it's okay that it's still going on, and I'm so pleased that everybody is here and speaking and listening. So mine is kind of minor in comparison, but because I'm here, I will speak. And it was going to be on behalf of the nonprofits. I particularly was speaking regarding Wild Ark because that is the one I'm most involved with. Although, as you probably know, my husband did Boy Scouts and adventures for years and years and decades, basically much of his life. So it was wonderful to hear about Camp Bernard again. Yvonne, thank you for the information on the hall. Morgan, that was fabulous. So it was with great surprise and disappointment when the tax exemptions were removed. And I know I've spoken before about my involvement with Wild Art. So just to add a little bit in particular about it, and I think they've already said all of these things, but I've been a volunteer for probably 20 years or more. And I think it's crucial for our Lower Island and motorbike property, all of these properties, that we try to hold on to the Camp Bernard, this green space that we are so fortunate to have. With wildlife habitat, housing, traffic, everything increasing at tremendous rates, we need to look after. Wild Art runs on a shoestring with a lot of love and help from numerous dedicated volunteers and very caring staff. It's not unusual for them to be concerned about empty gas tanks, equipment, and tools that are aging, but they carry on with a crowd of eager volunteers and workers to care for our lost and injured creatures. I was delighted to attend the special thank you dinner and event evening this fall held for staff and volunteers. I had thought it was going to be at the community house. When hearing we'd meet at the community hall, I was a little sad and thinking, well, it's so large and it's rather dark, and we probably won't have lots of folks there. Well, was I surprised. It was packed with the most wonderful, enthusiastic crowd of volunteers and staff with a fabulous potluck. Such fun, mostly lots of animal games, funny games, so many wonderful people with so many stories of their years, months, and weeks of volunteering, how important it is in their lives. I know for myself, I've been mostly on my own for over 20 years. And one of the highlights of my week, of my year, is when I see Wild Ark is called and need some of my deer food, or branches for nests, coverings for pens for birds, beaver, otters, and whatever. I've spent the last 20 years enjoying my property as I promote growth of those plants that wild art needs. Their visits are always special. Often I've pruned the truckload myself, or they help me with some of the higher ones. We carry them to the vehicle, no longer needing to be worried about them cutting off the sides of the busy roads.
Your time is up, Mrs. Remmer.
And often share an ice cream. Okay, just volunteering is such a major part of this as well. I just wanted to make that point. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anita Strauss, on Woodley Hill. I'd like to just say I agree with what Morgan, the points what Morgan made, and I think that maybe a little more attention should be paid to that. In terms of his last section in closing, I also agree that we should put the permissive tax exemptions back the way they were. This is a stopgap that we're doing now, and it's I would think temporary. It's not really. And then I would expect that we would put it back the way it was, and then I would suggest that the nonprofits submit a written submission, a couple paragraphs once a year, to assure the council and community that nothing's changed, and that we don't have to make them go through a bunch of hoops, spend a lot of time and effort. Though I do think that reporting back to the community is a great thing, but I don't want it to be done under duress, if at all possible. So that's about the permissive tax exemption. The other thing that I would like to speak to is about the sensitive environmental mapping. I can't really speak to that, though I have printed out, thank goodness for AI, I've printed out what Gemini has indicated, and I will pass that. There will be copies up there if anybody else wants to see it. So while I can't speak to it, I think that it should be defined, and that any discussion or any decision should include community discussion, identification of potential impacts, and include a mechanism for exclusions should any of these impacts substantially cause harm, and that it should need to be addressed. I'm just a little cognizant about what happened in Saanich over the Gary Oak mapping, which was a tremendous initiative until it turned out that a lot of people were severely impacted, and that things got a little carried away, and that places where Gary Oaks never were before got mapped and all these constraints happened. So we need to be very cognizant that this is a very sensitive thing that could happen. I agree absolutely with doing it, but we need to stay open and flexible in how we implement it, so that should we determine that some of the impacts outweigh the potential benefits, changes can be made to the mapping and exclusions can be had. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Ed Bennington. I live at 4860 Tavane Road. There's been a lot of commentation of the actions the council has taken to rectify what has happened this year. I think that one point I would like to make to add to all the other speakers is that some clarity on the intent of the council and the going forward in terms of the tax exemption issue be publicly discussed and addressed fairly quickly, as the uncertainty for all of these 8 organizations really impacts the plans that we do for the future. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
I just thought that the environmental mapping of sensitive areas was a no-brainer, but just in case anybody has any questions about it, please read carefully what's been submitted by MEASC, and also what Anita Strauss has just handed you. And the thing that stands out for me is map 4 and everything that's wrong with it, and it's from 1995, and it should be reviewed more often than that. So I think if that's the only thing you knew, that map is, apparently the map is blurry, you can't figure it out, it doesn't fit on the page properly, and it's vintage. So I urge you to update the sensitive environment mapping. I think that's it's time.
Good evening, Andy McKinnon from Whitty Beach Road. And I showed up tonight primarily if I could be of assistance with any technical questions regarding the data layers that were recommended in the sensitive ecosystems inventory, since I've worked with most of them and assembled some of them. I would just like to make the point, because we've had some discussion about this, that to my knowledge, these represent the most up-to-date data layers for sensitive and endangered ecosystems and species and habitats in Metchosin. So it's simply a listing of the best available information if we want to look at sensitive ecosystems in Metchosin. I think when people are talking about the implications of these data layers, they're beginning to look at what the OCP has to say, what our bylaws have to say, and what our policies as a municipality will be. And we can debate what we will do to manage sensitive ecosystems and endangered species in Metchosin. This item for discussion tonight is primarily about the data layers that would be involved in constructing a sensitive ecosystems inventory. And I would encourage Mayor and Council to focus on that aspect of it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kiara Kahakawila, Perry Crossroad. I'd like to start tonight by saying thank you to our fire chief and to my friend Stephanie for her time and service to this community. We wish you well and hope that you have just as much fun and success in your new role. On that note, as the Community Association, we have had the opportunity of working with Chief Dunlop on a number of initiatives, and her crew has helped us out. And it's one thing when you're listening tonight to all of these organizations that have been speaking about what they do here in Metchosin with their level of volunteerism and the work that is done through donations. Metchosin is defined by its people and its community groups. It's defined by what we do with our lives. It's defined by what we do as volunteers and how we help each other. I want to thank Council for finding a way forward to change a decision, or at least to revisit a decision that was made with the idea of possibly learning something more, possibly trying to find some money somewhere else. But in the end, it had unintended consequences that you have heard over the last several months, and to the organizations who have taken the time tonight to come here to speak to you. I applaud you for being able to revisit that and to look at what might be able to be done in the future. With that in mind, I would strongly encourage you to continue on that path and reinstate the permissive tax exemptions for the next tax year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan O'Connell, Kangaroo Road. Hi, Stephanie. I won't tell you how much I miss it, but I will. I'm worried about the green heart of Metchosin. It had a huge green heart, so I thought, and over the last little while, I'm worried about it. Initially, I was hoping that you would endorse restriction on old growth logging, and you wouldn't. Tanker bans on oil tankers, you wouldn't. The walk and talks that had gone on for 20 years in this place were subverted and not allowed for the last year. These things, there's kind of a drift to kind of taking for granted that we're going to be okay. And it's kind of a notion of, I'm a physician, and if someone comes into me with pneumonia and I say, you know, you're going to die anyway, so let's just give you some good morphine and let you pass away peacefully, rather than actively act on the imminent danger to us all of loss of the nature that's around us, the biodiversity that exists, especially in this zone here, because you can see us from space. You can see the borders of Colwood and Langford because you just see the development. And we've always had the ability to kind of cherish what we have, and we know we have it good. And our biggest issue is how to keep it. You know, you look at bird tagging that happens at Rocky Point, like there's literally 1,200 saw-whet owls that are picked up every year. It's like amazing what passes through here that's unseen. We know wild arc, we know all of these green spaces are creating and helping this biodiversity. And if they're threatened, they threatened Metchosin's heart. Like, this is more than just a thing of, you know, it's uncomfortable, we need to lower taxes, whatever. I mean, that pressure is everywhere. I'm not disagreeing on that, but to threaten the viability of this place, and it's an immense biodiversity, which we've you know, over the years we've done the bio blitzes, and we know what's here, and it's incredible. So I'm just trying to persuade us to move back to making our heart as green as possible, because there's nothing more challenging. I'm part of physicians, the Canadian Association of Students of Physicians for the Environment, and it is the most imminent threat to our health and our way of life if we don't completely look carefully at what's around us and do what we can to enhance it, not alone just preserve it. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the gallery? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next part of our agenda, which are the this section of 7.11. We'll just move that up on the agenda for the benefit of the representatives of these organizations this evening. So this would have been on page 39 of the agenda, committee. So the first thing that we have here is a report from staff. Staff, did you wish to walk us through this report? Thank you, Mr. Creek.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Try and get this set up here. All right, so the report is again based on the big thing, grant and aids for the people who applied for progressive tax exemptions back in September. I'll just kind of make this pretty quick. Can read the room here. Total cost estimated about $107,000. Cover the other taxing authorities. It's kind of a guess right now because I don't have any of the requisitions from the other taxing authorities except for West Shore Parks and Rec and the library. So we'll have the final numbers when the financial plan is approved come May. So it's likely to go up, but not for sure. Everybody who applied meets the current criteria for grant aid. They've got different usages for the funds that they'll save, either capital asset replacement, summer camps, annual programming, asset management, open house, that type of thing. The total cost of all of these grants combined is $229,000. And I guess originally, the thought behind all of this was the inclusion of all these properties would end up spreading the requisitions of all the other taxing authorities across a larger tax base, which would slightly reduce the tax of the portion owing from all the other individual taxpayers. But providing these grants and aid is going to offset those external taxes, which would reverse the effect and savings for the property owners in Metchosin. So as a result, basically nil impact to their taxes, still going to go up by X percentage, just shifting which line it appears on. But everybody only cares about the bottom line, not the ones in between. So I guess leave it up to discussion. I've got options 1 through 8 under the recommendations for providing the grant and aid to all of the affected properties, or you can send it back to staff for more information. Questions?
Okay, committee, we'll start. Are there any questions for Mr. Creek first, and then we'll go through each schedule? Councillor Gray.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Through the chair, I want to ask Mr. Creek, just to confirm, $107,000 is what we're talking about tonight, and that's approximately $50 per residential taxpayer?
Through the chair, correct.
And then the total value, combining both the municipal and other taxes, we've got a total of, at the moment, may rise, $229,684, and that would be $110 per residential taxpayer.
Through the chair, correct.
Great, thank you. Then I might just ask about the, like since council was elected, again through the chair to Mr. Creek, we've been granting, this council has been granting a heritage tax exemption in relation to the Church of St. Mary the Virgin property, as distinct from the municipal permissive tax exemption for St. Mary of the Incarnation Parish at 4125 Metchosin Road. I don't see the heritage exemption here today, and I wonder if you might explain that. We have exchanged emails earlier today, but I think it would be good for the public to be aware of what's going on here.
Through the chair. So correct, there was always this heritage tax exemption given to St. Mary the Virgin Church based on, I guess, some assumption that there would be some type of taxes payable based on the land. So the province, for churches and schools, that type of thing, they generally, for a church, they will exempt the building itself and the land under the building. And then also the province provides the exemption for cemetery. And so since that parcel of land is a church, land under it, and then mostly a cemetery, the province just provides a full tax exemption. So I was able to find that out when sent off to the BC tax assessment that there are no tax exemptions this year. Got back the information at the end of December, and it said this property is still fully exempt. And so based on that, there was no portion broken off for that little play school area. So it wasn't really needed.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful to understand and makes the package that we have clearer. And I just had one other question. And, you know, I think Chair Donaldson, we know that tonight's efforts are only complete half of the job. I'm very keen that we return to providing permissive tax exemptions for local nonprofits whose services and situations align with our strategic plans. And I wonder, Mr. Creek, could you tell us when this council will look at the 2027 permissive tax exemption question?
Through the chair. So right now we're planning to do it in June and then have it passed the first and only meeting in July. That way we get it taken care of before election time and all that good stuff.
Thanks very much. Perhaps I should make it clear as well. I had previously declared a conflict of interest when dealing with the tax exemption question because of my involvement as a trustee of the Metchosin Community Hall. And I have since resigned as a Community Hall trustee, consulted with legal counsel, and I'm now free to speak my mind moving forward and speak to the issues at hand. And I want to listen to what the people are saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shukin.
Through you, Councillor Donaldson. Mr. Creek, when will you have specific figures in terms of what the other taxing authorities will, like, total for that?
Through the chair, probably end of March, early April, so I'll have it, and then so that we come back maybe end of April, early May, when we're passing the final financial plan. You'll have the real final figure on the cost on the budget.
Okay. One more question, but the recommendations, which can also be motions, if we pass these tonight, that will be what we have to do to ensure that those amounts are covered.
Through the chair, correct. Yeah, kind of left it open-ended to the same, saying it's going to cover all the other taxes payable on those properties.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor
So
Schumann?
Councillor Donaldson, we've talked about this issue quite a bit. And again, there's been a full acknowledgement by members of the council who made the original decision that we made a mistake. And we made that mistake and came to the realization after talking with many of the groups. And many of those folks are here tonight and some aren't, but we certainly learned a lot. And the folks from the YMCA nailed it, and in terms of kind of keeping that relationship up. And I think that's a lesson for us all. So I'm fully in favor of granting the funds that will cover the other the amounts that are owed to the taxable authorities, and I think we should move on that. So with that, I would move that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council approve the addition of $107,000 in the draft 2026-2030 5-year financial plan to the grant and aid budget. So moved.
Point of privilege, point of order. I think the plan was to go through each one of these. And if there was additional conflicts of interest at the table, they would be able to make those conflict of interest declaration. It takes a little bit of a time, but I think it's important that we go through them each consecutively, if that's okay with the chair.
Yes, that would be good. I've been advised to go through each schedule separately. Yep. Okay, so if we can turn to Schedule A. This is St. Mary's of the Incarnation.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but that first motion does need to be made first before your consideration of all the individual applications.
Okay, the one that Councillor Schumann just made?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so with that, do I have a seconder, please? Okay, so moved by Councillor Schumann, second by Mayor Little. Any other discussion on that? This would be the recommendation of number 1 in the report, correct? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on 4 lessons that have come along with this situation. I'm speaking in favor of the motion, but I take Councillor Schugan's point. There are some lessons here. The first one was that it's been a difficult, but I would say uplifting experience to see the community-wide response to Council's unfortunate decision on September 15th to abandon the PTE for local nonprofits. We got something like, we were talking earlier today, 99 letters and many representations before us in the chambers. So lesson number 1 for me is, as council, we need to do more to get in touch and stay in touch with the community values of our residents. My second point is that we must do our best to communicate with those who will be impacted before making decisions affecting them. Our decisions need not come as a surprise. So lesson 2 for me is engage early, both council members and staff. The third point would be that council needs to take its obligations seriously to ensure procedural fairness at every turn. So lesson 3 is that council and staff must adhere to the principles of procedural fairness. We'll need the help of our CAO to stay on the straight and narrow. Number 4 is that council should work as a unit. Information provided by staff to assist decision-making must be provided to all members of council, not a select few. This was missed recently when a decision was made to require eligible nonprofits to complete a new application and invite representatives to present this evening. Suddenly abandoning the PTE for 2026 was council's error, in my view. Not sure why the nonprofits were asked to go through a new process at this stage. So for me, lesson 4 is that mayor and council members need to share plans and information with our colleagues before decisions are made on process and details. Council is a decision-making body, not any one of us as individuals. With that, I am ready to vote on the motion.
Okay, any other comments to this motion? No, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, so let's move to Schedule A. This is St. Mary's Church of the Incarnation. And so what we have in Schedule A, as we will with all of them, is the application form and the supporting documents. Are there any questions that each committee member may have at this time? Councillor Gray and then Mayor Little. Councillor Gray, go ahead.
Sure, I just wanted to be clear. I understood that the mayor and Councillor Schugan met with St. Mary's already and have already committed to provide these funds. Is that so?
When Councillor Shukin and I met with all of the groups except for the Hall Society, we both let the, if we're talking about St. Mary's of Incarnation, we, of course, communicated that we both felt that we had misstepped, and we apologized for the unintended consequences, and we both said that we would be in favor of granting the equivalent to what would be the other levies of the previous tax exemption. But of course, that would be a decision of council. So there was only two of us there. There wouldn't be more than that because that would be quorum. Anyways, that's what I remember from that.
Thank you.
Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, I remember something similar, but of course I wouldn't be able to make, I don't believe I would have made a commitment. Yeah, and understood that at that point, even the process was as yet vague. So, you know, the one thing I will say, my memory of that meeting with the folks from St. Mary's, I think it was Reverend Phil that was there, Wally was there, and I forget who else, but the one thing I do remember is they acted like true Christians. And I'm not a Christian myself, but I did feel like they came in with a sense of a Christian spirit and an understanding, and that was actually quite inspiring. So,
Mayor Little.
Yeah, and similarly, we had an actual wonderful meeting with the members of the church. And one thing that I didn't appreciate until we talked, so I'm glad that we were able to have a really honest discussion, was that the St. Mary's doesn't necessarily see themselves as an isolated church for only their members. They want, and I'm just paraphrasing, they want us to think of them as the church of the village, that it's a church of Metchosin. It is for Metchosin, for everyone in Metchosin, whether you're a member or whether you're of that faith. And so, you know, that was, I hadn't thought about it that way. It's not my religion, and I hadn't thought about it in that way. So I appreciated. Also, Wally Emer had some really poignant and thought-provoking words of wisdom for us, which I've benefited from. So there are gems that have come out of this this whole process, and I thank them, and I would be voting to support St. Mary's.
Councillor Gray.
And I'd just like to add thanks to St. Mary's for their contribution to our community.
Okay, so trying to go through back and forth of these electronic pages. Okay. One of the comments that I have from my own perspective as a councillor at this table, and a resident's lived here a long time, I keep hearing about this new revelation of how inclusive these organizations are. And in fact, they always have been. And so when my colleagues meet separately to learn this sort of stuff, I feel kind of left out. That it would have been wonderful if we'd all kind of had the opportunity to meet these organizations and learn more about them, even though we did get an outpouring from the community of in excess of 100 letters, emails, people coming to the podium throughout the months, phone calls. It's the biggest outpouring I have seen in, I think, decades of living here. So it's wonderful. It's unfortunate it had to go through the route that it did, and I'm sorry that there wasn't more inclusion with my colleagues. But I'm hopeful that we can make amends by going forward tonight through all of these recommendations that staff put together for us in their reports. And so with that, the the next recommendation that comes up that we're talking about here for the it's number 2, the motion is that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grant and aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for Anglican Synod Diocese, BC. And there is a property ID number there. Do you want me to read that too? No, okay. So that's the motion. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Second by Mayor Little. Any further comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Shukin and I were cognizant of the fact that there were only 3 members left at the table when we were deciding, if you remember correctly, both you and Councillor Gray had conflicts of interest right at the very beginning, right as I was introducing it. And so although you have rights to declare conflict of interest under section 100, 101, you don't also have responsibilities. And we were cognizant that we didn't want to put you in any position to contravene the requirements for the conflict of interest as well. So.
Correct. I have one group that I have a potential conflict of interest. You're right. For the others, I do not.
That's right. Except for you had your conflict of interest right at the very beginning when we started to talk about the whole permissive tax exemption, and so it made it all quite difficult. So that's why.
Thank you for that. So going forward, I think the word inclusion is what I've heard here tonight at the podium, and I've heard it again here a number of times at this table. Having everybody in the same room to learn more about the groups as we have with other grants. Having, I think somebody suggested maybe a report of what they've done that year, that sort of thing. That would be an inclusion that I would appreciate from our community as a whole as well. And that community also starts with the leadership of this table. Thank you. Okay, so there's a motion. It's seconded. Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And so the next Schedule B is BC Parks Foundation. Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. BC Parks Foundation isn't here tonight, but we did have a wonderful discussion with them. What I've appreciated from the BC Parks is they're not doing it for their own good. They're doing it for the environment's sake, and they have invested heavily in Metchosin regarding attaining properties that will be preserved and will be used for environmental initiatives. They are a longstanding organization. When you look at the books, as we had received a report from our chief financial officer, certainly with their net assets of 85 million, that's what we were looking at. We were looking at it purely from the black and white issue. We weren't looking at the nuances. I do understand that BC Parks provides valuable service, valuable property in Metchosin, and they hope to continue in that fashion, and I'll definitely support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
I'll make the motion. I could speak to it if there's a second. That the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grant in aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for BC Parks Foundation, PIDs 00170665 and 032214910.
Seconded by Mayor Little. Any other comments? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that I'm truly thankful to the BC Parks Foundation for the contributions they've made in Metchosin to save and protect important wild space in our community, aligning with the wildlife corridor aspirations that we have. I was personally thrilled that with the financial commitments they made to assist our community in protecting sensitive environments. And I'm hoping that we will pass this motion, and I'm hoping that when we turn to our, sounds like a June decision on permissive tax exemptions, we'll bring those back, and then maybe there'll be a chance that the BC Parks Foundation would come back and assist us with other properties. A point made tonight by someone in the audience was that the district itself just doesn't have the funds. I think it was Bev Hall to purchase property. But when we have someone like the Parks Foundation come and actually have the financial wherewithal to do that, I think it's very important that we do our part in supporting them with the tax exemption. And that means the community, the residents, the other taxpayers supporting it. It's not the council's money, but the money of our residents. But I think we all stand with the Parks Foundation in the idea of preserving wild spaces.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Schedule C, the BC SPCA Wild Arc. Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to move the motion, and I'll motivate it afterwards.
Sure. Okay, so the motion is that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grants and aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for BC Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Go ahead, Mayor Little. Oh, we need a seconder, sorry. Councillor Gray is the seconder.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank Wild Arc for their presentation this evening. It is a good reminder of the wonderful work that they do on southern Vancouver Island, but they also accept animals from other parts of Vancouver Island. I hadn't realized that they were the only SPCA wild type refuge spot. I didn't know that until this evening, and they absolutely do critical work for Metchosin and for Vancouver Island. I'd like to thank them for that, and I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, call the question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just again would thank Wild Arc for their contributions to our community and to our wildlife. I'm particularly impressed with the words of June Reimer tonight about what it means to volunteers with Wild Arc. But I think her comments also were general to volunteering in our community and how important that is to be supportive of those folks.
I'm reminded of past councils always saying how this community is built on volunteerism, and I have to say I'm very proud of that as well. Having interviewed a few for an article I wrote in the Muse for just before Christmas, it was enlightening to know that it's alive and well. So I appreciate all that do behind the scenes volunteer. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on to Schedule D, the Metchosin Hall Society. Anybody like to make a motion here? Councillor Shugan.
Sure, I will. First of all, I think it was Ms. Becker who presented. Thank you very much for the information and your submission to the grant and aid process. And with that, I would just move that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grants and aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for the Metchosin Community Hall with the PID number indicated. So moved.
Motion by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Would you like to second?
I'm sorry, I was writing down.
This is for the community hall, Metchosin Community Hall. Would you like to second the motion? Sure. Yes. Okay. So moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Any other comments? Councillor Gray.
Just want to thank the volunteers at the Metchosin Community Hall for all that they do to support our community life.
Agree. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so then we go on to
Humane Society.
The Humane Society, Schedule E. Councillor Shukin.
Just a quick comment. The Humane Society is a relatively new arrival in Metchosin, and they bought the property after the former owner passed away. I think it was in early 2024 that she passed away, Miss Peggy Jervis. And Miss Jervis's family was very interested in finding a new owner for that property that would protect it, and there would be an appropriate use there other than the potential of it being further developed and incorporated into some of the more industrial side of Langford. It looks to me like the Humane Society is a perfect fit, and it was great to welcome them in. I've talked to Miss Penny Stone a number of times, and we are hopefully going to get a site visit at some point as they move in. So I did talk to Miss Stone after the PTA decision, and again, her, the information she provided me at that time, I think Mayor Little met with her as well, again, made me realize that there was something we needed to correct. So with that, I'm happy to move that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grants aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for the Victoria Humane Society.
Second that.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Any comments? Mayor Little.
Yeah, as Councillor Shukin said, the Victoria Humane Society has never received a permissive tax exemption from us. They are new members of our community. Certainly, the Jervis family have embraced them and are welcome back to the property to view their conservation efforts as well. We've heard from a number of citizens about their efforts with cats in particular, saving them from a lot of harm, and they do immensely good work. And I'm told by people outside of Metchosin who have a long-standing relationship with Miss Stone and the Victoria Humane Society. So I will be speaking or voting in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be voting in favor of the motion as well. And just to remind Council, on March 3rd of 2025, we passed a motion to approve a tax-exempt 2026 permissive tax exemption for the Victoria Humane Society, with the encouragement that the Society move toward an environmental covenant on the property, and that the Society show the district some signs of progress on obtaining a covenant prior to the end of August 2025. So subsequently, of course, the permissive tax exemptions came up in September, and we learned that no progress had been made on moving towards a covenant. I also note that in the September 15th note from our CFO, the analysis that he did, he commented that the Humane Society does not meet any of Council's strategic priorities. That is, without an environmental covenant. So I'm hoping that the Society will be pursuing an environmental covenant in order to be eligible for a tax exemption in 2027. And I'm hoping that we can convey that to them.
Thank you. Mayor Little.
Just a note of clarification. So that was for the 2025. So that was a year ago that she had come forward, and we had talked about covenant as well. She chose at that time not to ask for a permissive tax exemption, and then this year she applied for the permissive tax exemption.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I think what I read out was precisely the motion that was made on March 3rd, 2025 with regards to 2026 tax exemption.
Okay, so seeing no other comments, let's go for the motion here for the Humane Society. This is number 6 in your report. Call the question, yes. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, so number 7. Number 7 is the YMCA-YWCA of Vancouver Island. Mayor Little, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm having problems with my, oh yes, here we are. That the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grants and aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for Victoria Motorcycle Club, ID 001703684.
It's the YMCA that we're doing, not the
Oh.
motorcycle club.
Awfully sorry.
That's okay. Number 7, just above it.
7, yeah. That Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to issue grants and aid sufficient to offset remaining 2026 property taxes payable for the YMCA-YWCA of Vancouver Island, PID 001680790, and the other ones. So moved.
Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments, committee? Councillor Gray?
Well, again, I'd like to thank, in this case, the Camp Thunderbird for all the contributions that they make to the wider community and for the environmental stewardship of their property. I particularly appreciated Derek Gentz and Luke Ferris' description tonight of what Camp Thunderbird does and the threat posed by removal of the tax exemption that they've had. The Camp Thunderbird, as we've heard at the council table, are part of the C2C green-blue belt of environmental protection. And it seems to me that the tax exemption that residents of Metchosin pay for Camp Thunderbird is part of our contribution to that huge project from sea to sea, green-blue belt. So thanks to the Camp Thunderbird for being here tonight and for all the work that they do. I was also taken by the description, particularly of the work that's done with youth and the experiences that young people can have at the camp, and to think it's been running for so long, and just want to make sure we do everything that we can to support them.
Thank you for that, Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. Of all the members of the community who put forward applications for the permissive tax exemptions, the taxes were the highest for the YMCA-YWCA and Camp Thunderbird, and certainly some of the lessons that I learned from this whole process is communications. And of course, we've got some obligations towards them, given their fundamental belief in children and children's opportunity to interact with nature. And I'm sorry that they are having legal issues with the development company that wants to tunnel under Camp Thunderbird. Certainly, I think that warrants discussions with council in the future and how we can help with that going forward. So with thanks to the YMCA Camp Thunderbird, the individuals that came tonight, and I will be speaking in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. I would like to say for all that have presented thus far and the deliberations and applications that are here, the assets of all of you are tremendous, and we've heard that from all the corners of Metchosin. And I do believe that with what Dr. Dan was saying about having a green heart and the biodiversity and the forests and the tree canopies that we share, that we still do have some of a green heart, I believe. But as he says, it's protecting it, and that means protecting the people that are here as well. So this whole process, I think, has been a good learning exercise for this council for sure. With that, I do have to recuse myself for the next organization. As I'm the acting mayor, I will ask Mayor Little to step in for this one part. So please assume the chair for me, as I will recuse myself due to a perceived conflict of interest, as members of my family are also members of Victoria Motorcycle Club.
Okay, council, so we have, the motion is that that the committee of the whole recommend council direct staff to issue grants and aid sufficient to offset the remaining 2026 property taxes payable for the Victoria Motorcycle Club PID 001-703-684-001-669-109.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Shukin. With thanks, the Victoria Motorcycle Club has only been receiving the permissive tax exemption from 2022. They do preserve the land, and of course they do have the option similar to what Camp Thunderbird were talking about in terms of managing the forest and cutting trees to generate revenue for the motorcycle club, and they had not wished to do that. And that's why last council I spoke in favor of it, and they do provide value to the community in letting others such as search and rescue and the fire department to go on their property, as well as they have open days open to the public. And I have heard personally from direct neighbors of them that they are always informed about activities that are happening, meetings that are happening. So they're good stewards of the land, and they have been good neighbors. So I'll vote in favor of the motion. Councillor Shukin.
Well said, Mayor Little. I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Yes, I want to thank the Victoria Motorcycle Club as well for the contributions they've made to the wider community and for the environmental stewardship of their property. I mean, they are subject to the tree cutting bylaw, but the point is that the Victoria Motorcycle Club has kept care, and I think we heard tonight that since the purchase of the property, the tree canopy has remained stable. But I really appreciate the role they play with kids and adults and the scouts, the fire department, Metchosin Search and Rescue, all big contributions to the greater community. So I'll vote in favor of the motion. Thank you.
And one thing that I forgot to mention that I found out new was that there's a number of members of the Metchosin Motorcycle Club that are buying motorcycles or bikes, motorized bikes for younger members of the community that can't afford. They show them how to maintain it, show them how to put the bits and bobs back onto the bikes, and that was the members' responsibility. So they actually gave thousands of dollars back to the community in these bikes that they're granting to younger members that they're mentoring. So I thought that was quite brilliant. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. We'll call Councillor Donaldson back into the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay, Council, before we continue, let's take a 2-minute break, and as the room moves out and gives us a time to refresh. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome back, Council. So now we will resume the meeting. And if you look at your agenda, we'll go to number 4, adoption of the minutes. I believe that's where we're going. Mayor Little?
Yeah, I'll move that the December 4th, 2025 Special Finance Committee Budget Meeting minutes be adopted.
Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and the next one, B, December 8th, 2025 Committee of the Whole minutes on page 11. Mayor Little, moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to 4C, January 22nd, 2026 Special Finance Budget Meeting. Call it, moved by Mayor Little, second by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Thank you. And number 5, receipt of minutes for the advisory select committees. There are 5 here. Do you want to do them individually or you want to do them together? Individually? Okay, so November 25th, 2025 is the Healthy Communities Advisory Select Committee minutes. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. November 25th, 2025 MEAS minutes. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Gray. Questions? Mayor Little?
Yeah, I just have a comment under 9, other business. There was a discussion about the oil tanker moratorium, ACT. And I'm just wondering through the chair to Councillor Gray, this wasn't, the motion wasn't carried according to the minutes, but I'm just wondering what the conversation was, like where did this, how did this come up at this time?
And Councillor Gray, can you help us with that?
That was on November 25th, 2025. And we had received correspondence from several residents and also an email from the Sierra Club. And the residents were asking us to consider such a motion. And we said, me ask, and these are draft minutes, that motion was carried, but then brought it to council. I think we've already approved the minutes from council, or they're still coming, where we put the motion on the table at council. But we learned that, Mayor, through the chair, Mayor Little, you'd already sent a letter before council had authorized the letter. So we appreciate the letter going. And it followed along nicely with what MEASC had advised, or recommended, excuse me.
Mayor Little?
Yeah, okay, thank you for that clarification. It was a bit confusing with the minutes from January 27th. Because in those minutes, there was a report, I guess, on the letter that I had written on December 8th, I believe, and they said something like thanks that their letter was sent, and I was confused. Was there another letter from MEASC? They're talking about their letter, so I'm just wondering where that letter was. We didn't receive it at council. And the first time that we saw these minutes from December and from January is tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments on the November 25th MEAS minutes?
Yeah, I was just wondering where is the letter from MEASC? If we can ask that through the chair to Councillor Gray.
Okay, so for the November 25th minutes.
So on the bottom of page one, it just says letter from Metchosin Council to Minister of Transport. And it says, it's good to see Miask's letter was sent out. I'm just wondering where Miask's letter was.
Certainly, I'm just looking to find the page that's on in the agenda package.
Yeah, this is January 27, 2026. This is I don't know what the page number is.
Oh, here it is. It's on page
one at the very bottom.
Oh yes, here it is on page 35. Yes, I know you had sent a note saying that we were not to distribute the letter, but I checked with the deputy corporate officer, and I believe she confirmed with you the letter that you did prepare was put on as part of the agenda package for MIASC, and that's the letter that you were talking about here. So we had recommended a letter go, and you in fact penned a letter, and that's the committee's commenting on. Thank goodness the letter was sent. As recommended by MIASC.
So that I'm clear, we're talking about the November 25th minutes, and it's being referenced also in the January 27th minutes.
So believe on, would you like me to respond?
Yes, can you?
Yeah, November 25th, MIASC recommended the letter go about the northern tanker ban, or to support that. Then that recommendation went to council, or I guess the council, I can't remember. And Councillor Shukin and I moved and seconded a motion. The mayor then informed us that she had already sent a letter about the northern tanker ban. So that was that. And that letter was then shared with MIASC on January 27th. And they were thankful the letter had been sent.
Yeah, thank you. It was just confusing. I think the minutes should always be accurate when they can, and certainly the Local Government Act says of what they say of minutes is they need to be accurate. And it was just that the timing was interesting, and this is the first time there was a motion previously, but it wasn't attached to the minutes as we usually do. The minutes are usually here, and then the motions that come from the minutes. As you remember, at a previous council or committee of the whole, a resolution came forward. It was December 8th, and that motion was withdrawn. And so it wasn't attached to the minutes. And so are you saying that these two MIASC minutes that we're seeing tonight are draft?
I believe the minutes that you're looking at for January 15th have not yet been approved by January 27th have not yet been approved by the committee, although I don't recall.
Yeah, both of them have not been approved by council or received by council. This is the first time we're seeing those, so they're not draft. They're the final version of these advisory select committee meeting that we're receiving. Yeah, is that right?
That would appear to be. Any other comments?
Just a quick question. Mayor Little, are you thinking that the minutes should maybe be sent back to MIASC for clarification, the November 25th ones, or?
No, I think they're fine. I just wanted clarification on there, but certainly the January 27th makes reference to their letter. And I was just wondering, since if the letter wasn't attached to this and we hadn't previously seen their letter, I was just wondering what they were referring to. Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further conversation on this or comments, I will call the question to receive the minutes for November 25th. MIASC. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, so moving on to December 9th, 2025. The Agricultural Advisory Select Committee minutes. Move to receipt.
Move receipt.
By Councillor Gray, seconded by Mayor Little. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And the next one is January 15th, Agricultural Advisory Select Committee.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Mayor Little. Comments? Councillor Shukin?
Sorry, not so much a comment, a question. I'm
Okay.
happy with the minutes. And I think I may have missed my thing here from the past minutes. Why don't we pass these and I'll ask my question after?
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll call the question for the January 15th agriculture minutes. A receipt for those. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
So just looking at the January 15th minutes, there's mention here about two things, interesting information about the geese.
Yes.
And also, I'm trying to find where it is now, but the reference to, I think there's a task force on the farm tax status. And I've heard little linklings about this, and I believe the task force is nearing the end of its work and will be submitting a report, and whether there's any change is probably about to take some time, because task force to government into some sort of legislation or something. But my question is, do you have any further insights into that?
The most recent information, I couldn't find it as much as I wanted to on the internet, but the information I did get was from UBCM, so that's a few months old, but it is the Premier's Task Force. There are some very knowledgeable people on that. There would be a variety of different things that they're looking at. One of them, which is referenced here and something that has been at the forefront of discussions here at this table as well and in the community, is addressing the threshold for obtaining farm status. So as you've heard me say before, for well over 35 years, the threshold has been $2,500. And they're looking at increasing that. There was a resolution put forward from the community of Mission to almost triple it. The task force is looking at doing it not as much as a phase-in, but maybe more as a tiered. And that is something that I'd like to learn a little bit more about before I report too much on it. I don't believe that it's a tiered as into what people are doing, but certainly will probably be more fair in addressing all the different kinds of farming activities that happen throughout the province. And I think with that, it'll acknowledge where people are at. It'll also encourage people to be for more growers as well. So I'm looking forward to the full report on that. But the good news is that they are addressing it. It's long overdue. Many farms, small farms, big farms, would certainly not hurt from having the threshold increase. It's just how much. As an example, if you doubled it today, it probably wouldn't be too bad. But if you tripled it, some farms would have to address infrastructure situations, especially if you have breeding stock or you need a bigger barn, that sort of stuff. And that might only take a year or two, depending on costs and sizes of farms. So not that they couldn't do it, but it would allow them some time. Similarly to other things that we've even discussed here tonight, that given advance notice and knowing what to work towards makes it fruitful for everybody when you got that kind of communication. So as I learn more about that, I will certainly report on that, because that's something of great interest in our community and certainly among our farmers for their accountability as well. Councillor Mayor Little.
And certainly through the chair, that's what we talked about. One of the things we talked about when we met with Minister Lana Popham at the UBCM conference, Councillor Donaldson and I were meeting with her, and we did learn a little bit more about, not much, about the task force, but Minister Popham had said she had heard a lot of communication from the farmers, particularly from the Lower Mainland, Pitt Meadows, and in the Fraser Valley, sort of the green belt, about the farm tax and about what some wanted to see as a differentiation between small scale gentleman farmers and larger operations. And I think it's our comments regarding support of the farmers in Metchosin, support of the flavor trail and our farm stands, as well as comments towards revising the recommendations regarding the farm tax to the task force was well received. And yeah, she was very engaged and thanked us for our advocacy for farms.
So more to report for sure. Yeah. Thank you. It is a multi-year process. It's not going to happen overnight. I think they're already into like year 3. So hopefully soon we'll hear about that. Okay, so I believe we're looking at January 27th MEAS minutes.
You might need to pass a motion.
Did we do? We did, because Councillor Shu can comment it after. So
I'll move receipt of the Environmental Advisory Select Committee minutes for January 27th.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We don't have any business arising. We've already gone through the reports for the permissive tax exemptions. Oh, Councillor's update. Find that on here. Okay, my councillor's update is quite long, so I won't read it all because it's 2 pages. But I did want to highlight, and there's lots of information in there, so if you have any questions of me, certainly stop me in my place here. But what I did want to say is the Peninsula Agriculture Advisory Commission is up and running. They were having a revision of their governance and terms of reference. It was about an 8-month sabbatical of organizing that and establishing a new committee. The Deputy Corporate Officer, Ms. Hanson, and I attended this last week, I believe it was, and it was a very full agenda, but we got through it. It was very well facilitated by the new chair, and it sounds like that's the way things are going to be. Lots of energy and lots of great things. I think what was really enlightening for me, not so much just the renewed energy at the table, but also the functioning of PAC. I understood it from our previous chair, which is our own Robin Tunnicliffe, just how important PAC really is. And so as an example, and you see that in my report here, there were several development referrals from both Saanich and Central Saanich that came before PAC. One was a rezoning application of 17-unit townhouse development with some community gardens and dog area, and they declined to, no one was in favor of that, so they declined that application. The non-farm use application for 3 temporary portable paddleball courts, which is on ALR land. This is a Mount golf course in the Blenkinsop Valley. They didn't see that as a worthy non-farm use. The other one was an equestrian development. This is out in Central Saanich, near Saanich Fairgrounds. And this is this one was interesting because it struck home a little bit, not because it was an equestrian development and it's something I'm interested in, but because it's similar to what we've been talking about here in our own community. And this is arable farmland, and there was actually a member of the PAC who is a multi-generation family in Saanich, and he gave us some history of the land and what used to grow there. It was phenomenal amounts of corn and potatoes, and right now it's a dumping field, and it's a shame that it is. What they're asking for the initial phase is for over 5,800 cubic meters of aggregate to be brought in for an outdoor riding ring, 20 paddocks, which will have two shelters each. Those are 12 by 12, so that's 24. That's not 24. I can't do the math right now, but just multiply it. And so that was what is concerned with the amount of aggregate they're bringing just on the first phase for driveways, paddock, the riding ring. And so they declined that and said no, they didn't accept that as a proper use for arable farmland. The next one was proposal for 2 trailers. Their RVs already exist on a small farm, sort of a small-scale farm that they have been regenerating. The RVs were there, I believe, when the people had the homes or moved into the place, and they have farm workers that live there. But RVs are not an allowable use on farms. I don't know that this was an ALR piece of land, but this one also was declined. So these are there was another one as well, which I didn't include here, but it was to do with residential. We didn't discuss it. We took it off the table for some reason. I can't recall. But what was interesting for me is any one of these could be in Metchosin. And so when we do have something that is of concern with development or changing of ALR or any kind of our farmland or potential farmland, we can actually, if we're not sure ourselves, we can refer this to PAC, being that we're members, and they will give us information back or input on any of these sorts of applications or things that we're looking for more information on. They're very astute people that are there, various backgrounds in the farming industry. So it was very refreshing to listen to them and watch the engagement. The other thing was a report on the CRD Foodlands Initiative at Bear Hill Park. They've been clearing a lot of the brush, and it used to be a bit of a tree farm, so they've done a lot of milling and taking out those roots and chipping. They're hoping to have partner agreements in place with farmers selected for August, so it's taking a bit of time, but this is an area to introduce new and young farmers and do some land matching for long-term agriculture use of this land. So this is a pilot project, as you may remember. And that, so that was interesting to listen to that as well. We did have a member from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food come and attend our meeting. This was Megan Halstead. She lives here in the region, and she's a South Island regional agrologist, speaking on the golden nematode regulation. Just a little bit of history from myself. When I was a little girl, I remember we used to take a day trip out to Saanich to get potatoes. You can't get potatoes from Mitchell's farm because there's a restriction because of this nematode. But there are some parts of central Saanich which are not restricted, so they're looking at that and doing a review. She didn't have some information. It was just a little bit of an update. She says there's more coming, and so she's going to come back and talk with us on that. The group also is hoping to have Lana Popham come and speak as well, being that she's a local MLA and member of Parliament. And then the last for this report is that the Goals Night of the Year is coming up, something that we've all at some point in time been involved with, and that's on February 28th in the West Shore. So that's my report. And any questions? Marilyn?
I've been thinking about PAC of late because, as you mentioned, they've gone through a governance rejuvenation. They have a new committee, very invigorated. But looking back just recently, they had an absolute phenomenal year-end report of all of their accomplishments in the year and some from previously. And I've been trying to figure out how to get that out to the community, the people that don't attend council meetings and don't read the Muse, how we could get it out to the rest of Metchosin, because they really do add value to the community, and maybe we can post something that year-end report that was so incredible on the website to give them a plug. We are a member, so that would be legitimate, and I would welcome your thoughts on how to raise the profile of this phenomenal group.
Yeah, that would be one good way of doing it. In speaking with Robin before I went to the meeting, just to get some background, because it was the reason I haven't been going is it conflicts with my board meetings with West Shore, but they're kind enough to have gone around the table to see who was available when, and I asked them to please, now that West Shore has changed their date, not to conflict it. So we found our dates at least up until the summer. One of the things that they have done in the past, as you're aware, is they had a dumping workshop. And in speaking with Robin, she sort of felt that we could probably do a second one, and they would just need a place to do it. And I said, well, maybe we could do that in Metchosin. We have the gymnasium, we have the classrooms, that sort of thing. So I haven't brought it up to PAC yet, but if that's something that they're interested in and bringing the farmers out this way, that would be something that maybe they could plan for the fall. There was quite a lot of interest from both the developing community, the developers, and the bylaw officers, as those of us who did go recall, as we broke out into different working groups and such, that they wanted to come back and share more information. And I think that that would bode well in our community, as we are getting more and more concerns of dumping on our farmland here in Metchosin. So I think that is one thing that we could do to highlight as well. So to be a host to something like that. So I will, I will talk to our agricultural committee here and see what they think about highlighting PAC, and I can certainly take all sorts of ideas back to PAC if anybody has things that they think would be of value.
Yeah, thank you for that. Those are wonderful suggestions. And then the second thing that you highlighted was the coldest night of the year. I'll be walking again with the Souk people. It's a really fun event. If anybody wants to join us and walk, you're more than welcome to. I think you walked with Langford Council last time and had a hoot as well. So I encourage everybody to join in.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It starts out at Starlight Stadium. I didn't go last year, but I have gone in previous years, and I'll be joining up again with the Access West Shore Society on that, the Barrier Busters. Yeah. Okay, so the next councillor's update is Councillor Shukin from the Community Planning Portfolio.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Donaldson. Just really quickly, PTask has a new chair, and this is Mr. David Shanks, who takes over from Ron Aubrey, who has served he's been on PTask for, I think, several decades now, and served as chair for the last several years. So Dave is a relatively new member, has a young family, but is a great addition to PTask. So we're have a fairly short bench right now, but we are expecting a few more members to join us in the coming weeks here. The Parks and Trails Master Plan continues work on that, and want to thank, I want to say Councillor McKinnon, Dr. McKinnon, and Councillor Gray for providing MEASC's comments, and I just got through them this morning. I'll send them back to you, and you can have a look at how they were addressed. There's others who are also providing input as well. We'll do our best to take the input from our folks, and we'll do it in terms of a sense of brevity and accuracy, and again, just meeting the vision that we have of the plan. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come back to this table, and it will be up to council to determine if it's suitable to move on or not. So, Friends of the Bufferland, there's a comment earlier today about, earlier this meeting about the green heart of Metchosin. and like you, Councillor Donaldson, I believe it beats very strongly still. There are several new groups who have come up that are dedicated to protecting the I don't know if natural, but the biodiversity and the ecological values of this community. And so one of the promising groups is Friends of the Bufferland. They had an invasive pull on January 17th. Councillor Donaldson, you were there. Yeah, doing great work. And the group is planning to have more of these. And there are a number of initiatives that they're looking to bring back to council for some consideration as well. And again, all very consistent with the direction we seem to be headed in terms of creating the bufferland as an ecological conservation area. And again, no small challenge, because we will have a very dense population center relative to Metchosin right adjacent to us. So it is going to be a very challenging land management program to undertake. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is environmental natural areas. Councillor's update. Councillor Gray.
Thanks so much, Councillor Donaldson. Just two things to report. One is that I attended the CRD Arts Commission on January 28th in place of Councillor Epp. And we looked at the 2026 operating grants, and we approved a total of $2.4 million going out to different arts groups in the community. The idea being that an investment in arts with public sector funds is very important to keep access to the arts open for all of our residents. There were 26 applications. One was unsuccessful. All the other applications were recommended for support. And interestingly, the way that they do make changes when they make them is they provide groups 1 year of notice before any change in funding to allow people to catch up and change management to meet criteria if those are in question. So that was interesting to be there. The kinds of groups, by the way, that they supported or that we have supported through the CRD grant is like people like Atomic Vaudeville, the Belfry Theatre, Cinevic Society, Kaleidoscope Theatre, Pointe Theatre, Theatre Scam, Story Theatre, Victoria On Stage, Victoria Conservatory of Music. So a lot of different groups that many of us are familiar with and have enjoyed their performances or their art. So it's a privilege to be part of that group, and I'll carry on now as our representative for the remainder of the term. The second point I want to make was that the CRD Regional Water Supply Commission did recommend several bylaws to the CRD board to establish a development cost charge program. And the idea there is that in the strategic plan of the Water Board or Water Commission, there are plans for considerable infrastructure. And the idea with development cost charges is that charges for expansion of the water system will not fall disproportionately on existing users. And that will go to the board, and then I think we'll hear from Mayor Little how it's dealt with at the board level. Those are my two issues to report.
Thank you very much. Any comments for Councillor Gray? No? Great, thank you. Mayor Little.
Yeah, since we were talking just previously, Councillor Shukin had talked about some of our green initiatives. I thought we had a motion, a resolution along the lines of old growth forest. That was at the AVICC in 2023, I believe. As well, we had a resolution at UBCM, and I spoke to this as well about the oil tankers that were situating themselves on our shores, and we were concerned about the scrubbing and the potential for leakage. So that's something that we had done as well. We had written advocacy letters twice now to the Minister of Transport. This latest one was to the Prime Minister regarding the oil tanker moratorium and our interest in protecting our coastline. So that was two letters that went there. As well, we had sent a letter to the Minister of Environment regarding our no, that was to Premier Eby regarding the BC Coastal Marine Strategy and our recommendation to enshrine it into law. So we actually have done quite a bit of advocacy in old growth forest, the BC Marine Strategy, as well as in supporting the tanker ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so other business, the official community plan protection of sensitive environments. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'll make the motion that we have here that Council approve the new mapping categories proposed by MEAS to describe Metchosin sensitive ecosystems. As a seconder, I'll explain further.
I will second that. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you all have had a chance to read the note that we prepared, and so I just want to emphasize 4 points that you'll have be familiar with. The number 1 point is that our current or existing OCP, section 2.3.9, obligates the district to prepare and maintain an inventory of sensitive ecosystems with annual updates. To the best of our knowledge, this has not been done. Updates are past due, and if we're able to move on this, will help us in meeting the objectives of the OCP to protect sensitive ecosystems. Number 2, the identified sensitive ecosystems, once they're set up in section 2.3.9, then they're reflected in map 4 of the OCP, and map 4 is included in the package today. My third point is that on review by MEASC, the committee realized that the map 4 categories in the OCP do not match the information on sensitive ecosystems mandated by the OCP at 2.3.9, nor is the information in map 4 readily refreshed, given changes in data availability. So the fourth point is looking at the available mapping data sets today, we've got the Provincial Conservation Data Center and CRD mapping. And what we're proposing is that MEAS takes some time to determine the most appropriate mapping databases, their availability, quality, and any overlaps. But before undertaking those investigations, we wanted to come to council to get clear about the categories. We're not asking to make changes to the OCP itself, but simply seeking approval of our work plan to sort out what categories make sense today, given different and new databases as compared to when the OCP was written in so many years ago. We're acutely aware of the staff workload, so hoping to have your approval to have MEASC pursue this a little further to get clarity on the best approach to make recommendations in future. Once we've done some further work, then we would bring it to staff for their review and advice. And as was mentioned earlier, Dr. Andy McKinnon is here from MEASC if you have any particular questions about the data sets.
Thank you for that. Any questions, committee? Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, I wish we may have had some discussion before a motion was put on the table. The one thing that's clear to me is map 4 is awful. Like it does need to be updated for sure, but so do the other maps in the OCP. Some of the other significant ones we did make a change late last year, but there are other maps that also need to be updated as well. I'm not entirely sure why council's voice is needed right now. Councillor Gray just said, you know, Mr. McKinnon and Councillor Gray are coming here to get clarity from council on the categories. I don't know what we can provide in terms of clarity to you. The briefing note here, it would have been nice to have had more information on the categories. I recognize, you know, there's the CDC classification, but there's obviously some depth in that. And then again, if the motion is passed, what does this mean? Are you simply asking for us to move ahead as MIASC, as the committee, are you asking for budget? It doesn't seem like it, but I'm kind of leery without that being more specifically addressed. So again, I recognize the work needs to be done, whether it's now or at some point. But if we're talking about an update to the OCP, this is just one element of the OCP. So is this, yeah. I recognize that if MIASC wants to do the work, that's great. I'm just not totally clear why it needs to come to council. So, full of questions.
Well, thanks for those questions. Mayor Little.
Yeah, thank you. I read this package on Sunday, and there was no map form that was attached to it. We did receive a map today, and looking at it, it does require some substantial revision. So it was difficult to analyze the report when I didn't have the map in it. And for me, I think this is a case of the committee knowing this so well that they forgot to articulate it in this proposal. I think this is worthy, but it's difficult for me to make recommendations to council without the map, but also the overall intent and the purpose of the new map. Like, what is this leading to? I'm reluctant to make recommended changes to the OCP without sufficient information regarding what I'm voting on and what are the consequences of that. I was just wondering about the community water supply. What was the intent to overlay the map of the aquifers that we have, and namely Aquifer 606, because many of the areas in Metchosin, probably most, drain into Aquifer 606. So is it the intent to overlay Aquifer 606 with that? Because it would include probably all of Metchosin, because we don't have sewer catchment areas, which is collecting water. More than half of this report is outlining what the OCP, the general environmental policies, as background. But there's sort of, I was looking for, like, what's next? What's the purpose of this? Surely this is not just to have it in the OCP and never referred to. But I'm always in favor of plans not to be put on the shelf, but to be actually of some utility to council and to the community. We did hear from a member of the community tonight talking about the sensitive environmental mapping and the application. So I'd like to see some of that being discussed at MIASC. I think those are great suggestions, and it actually gave me some more information that supports this proposal. So I'd like to see that this come back to committee of the whole with just some more information, just so that we can understand what we're getting into, but also I wasn't at that MIASC meeting, so I don't have the privilege of the conversation that was there, but it should have been articulated in the proposal, as we've seen other reports, and MIASC would know that, because as Councillor Schuman said, they provided extensive comments to the Parks and Trails Master Plan, which was done by PTask. And so they did a deep dive, and I think they would expect the same of PTask and of council. Not to say I'm taking away from the value of this exercise. It's just I just didn't know what to make of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all really good questions. So my question is, and it's more for clarity. I understand layers. If I was to go onto the CRD regional maps, I'm not good at it, but I understand it, and it really opens up a whole different world, including when we did the water workshops, when that was also, there was a demonstration of that. So with the conservation one and these different categories, I'm assuming that each category will have its layers, and there'll be more internal ones. I don't know how that looks when you put it into an OCP, which is a black and white piece of paper, or maybe it'll be colored because we're going into color more. This sounds very exciting to be able to update something like this, especially that it was 1995, and I'm surprised that all these years that Miask and other groups in Metchosin who are strong environmental groups haven't done anything with this. So this is ambitious. Is it that Miask just wants our blessing, Councillor Gray, to be able to go and do this, or do they want to do like an overhaul similar to, say, the Parks and Trails Master Plan?
Sure. I think the answer is yes, we'd like your blessing. It's quite straightforward, in fact, and interested that it's found confusing. So what's going on is we provided you the OCP clauses, so you'd be familiar with the basis for the kind of work that we're talking about. And that's centering on an obligation for the district to prepare and maintain inventory-sensitive environments and to update on an annual basis. Miask notes that hasn't been done. So we think that it would be a good thing to do. And it has to do, I suppose, with what we heard earlier about the green heart of Metchosin. Are we interested in the sensitive environments, or are we not? The question that's being asked here is that when you look at the criteria under 2.3.9, 1 through 5, that's the OCP. And if you look at the map, we can't figure out how the categories in map 4 relate to the requirements under 2.3.9. So we took a look at what's available these days, decades later, and we see, great, we've got some terrific databases we can turn to, but we can't recommend that to you yet. It's not changing the OCP yet. We just wanted your blessing to say, we'll go away and work on that and see what we can do to come back and provide you with whether these data sets will work or not, whether these categories make sense or not, all of that. So it's a little bit different than the PTASK master plan, which is a document that we take a look at. Here we're saying we want to explore these ideas, as the note says, to determine the most appropriate databases for these map categories and their availability. It was just before launching into it, this is a fair amount of work for the committee. Before we start that, we want you to know that's what we're up to. And if you'd say, great, we'll get on it. There's no tricks here. We're not changing the OCP or anything like that. We're trying to just get the work done. But given the amount of work, given the staff situation, we thought we'd better come and tell you, we're going to take a look at these databases and see what we can do for you.
Thank you. Councillor Shukin.
I just want to challenge one of the statements that Councillor Gray just made. And I can't say the exact words, but it's to the effect of you're either for the environment or against the environment. It's not a binary situation. Especially when we're talking about a resolution that, to my mind, isn't really clear, especially when I hear Councillor Gray speaking now. What seems to be the case is that Miask wants to undertake a mapping project. And it would be interesting if we have some information here on that, but the resolution talks about the mapping categories, which I don't really feel qualified to render a verdict on. And we haven't received sufficient information in terms of making that, making a judgment on whether these are the right mapping categories or not. So again, approve the new mapping categories proposed by Miask. That is what we're being asked to do. So again, if the work sounds, again, credible and valid, but in terms of the resolution that's before us, it doesn't seem to fit. I would like to, again, have a little bit more information about what the actual project is, and within that, some mapping categories as well, and what those are defined as. And I go back to, again, some of the things that have been brought forward in terms of like environmental stewardship. So for example, the Bufferland Working Group, I brought forward the concept, then I brought forward the terms of reference. There was a staged process there. Same with the Parks and Trails Master Plan. Brought forward the concept that clarified, again, goals and objectives, and then asked for council's verdict and whether they could see us going ahead with that plan. So again, if we're talking about approving mapping categories, of which we have very little information on, I have trouble with that. And again, especially if it's being positioned in, we're with the environment or we're against the environment. I mean, that's below me.
Councillor Gray.
Excuse me, I'm talking about the sensitive environments, whether or not we're interested in doing as the OCP suggests, and I'm only referencing earlier someone mentioning how important these are to us. I'd like to invite Dr. McKinnon to speak, if that would be all right, just to give his explanation.
Committee, you're okay with this? Okay, go ahead. Mr. McKinnon, please.
I certainly agree with what Councillor Gray has to say. We wanted, before we got going in earnest on this project, we wanted to bring to you our reasoning why we thought it was important to proceed. The OCMP says clearly in a number of sections we should do something. We're not. So we're saying we ought to. And I think in some ways analogous to what you were describing, Councillor Shukin, where you said we would come to council with goals and objectives, then we'd come to council with this, then we'd come to council with that. We're coming to council saying, we think we've got a problem here. We think we need a new map. We think these are some of the layers that should go into the new map. This is a good opportunity for council, for example, to say, yes, we think it should include riparian areas. Yes, we think it should include threatened and endangered species. No, we don't think it should include endangered ecosystems or whatever. This is as preliminary as it gets. The next step, if you think we need a new map, if we're going to adhere to the OCP, is for MEASC volunteers to look into the existing maps of threatened and endangered ecosystems, look into endangered maps of threatened and endangered species, what would be required for Metchosin to acquire and use these maps, and then come back with a proposal for how we could do that. If you want a briefing with a fuller description of some of the map types that are available, it would take a long time, and it certainly wouldn't be less than 100 pages, I think. So this is sort of, do you like the goals and objectives? And if so, then we'll go away and beaver away as volunteers, as we always do, and come back in a little while saying this is what would be required to produce something like what's supposed to be required under the OCP. So that's how we were approaching it. There was debate about whether we ought to just get on with it. The consensus at MEASC seemed to be that it was probably a good time right at the very beginning to bring it to council. If it's going to get shot down, it may as well get shot down now, rather than when we have gone further down the road and made a whole bunch of decisions about what layers ought to be in it and how we ought to proceed. So we thought right off the bat, let's bring it to council, see what they have to say, and proceed or not, depending on direction.
Councillor Shukin and then Councillor Gray.
Thank you for the explanation, Mr. McKinnon. I think this is a worthy project, make no mistake. And it's great that MEASC is interested in doing this. I've been through these things before where you have momentum and excitement about doing this. So I don't want to dampen that. My concern is with the motion that has been made. It strikes me that it should be more general about the mapping project that is being considered by MEASC. And I think that there's room to move ahead with this and even approve in principle the new mapping categories as proposed by MEASC that will inform a project to update map 4. That strikes me as something reasonable. But I'm leery about a recommendation that council approve the new mapping categories. Again, I think it just has to go to the heart that there is a project here, affirm that project, and even give, in the name of being, starting out, approval in principle for these categories.
Councillor Gray.
I'm going to move an amendment to the motion to remove the word new and insert the word preliminary. So the motion would now read that council approve the preliminary mapping categories proposed by MEASC to describe Metchosin sensitive environments. If I have a seconder, I'll explain.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Just following up on Councillor Shugan's discomfort, the precision of the motion maybe will be a big help. Also to address the mayor's concerns. We're just talking about doing some work. We wanted you to see it all as Dr. McKinnon has explained, and hopefully have your support.
Councillor Shugan.
I'm happy to support the amendment if it could also include, as part of a project update, map 4. I think it's important to, again, in terms of the motion, I think it's important to identify it as part, like where this is headed and what the project is. So again, this motion is very vague. And again, I think it does a discredit to the project that's at hand. So if we can link it to the project, and again, the preliminary element you've stated, I think it's acceptable and we're pursuing.
Would you like to amend it to include map 4, Councillor?
Certainly. I think then it may be that we'd recommend more than one map. So I mean, I don't want to just narrow us down to not being able to do the work, but with reference to map 4 is fine with me. So let's just see if this would work. The council approved the preliminary mapping categories for map 4 in the OCP. It's hard because I don't really want to change the OCP here. How would you like to do it?
I think the question is toward an update of map 4. And that could be tagged on at the end.
Okay, so
within the OCP.
So I'll make them. So we should actually settle on the preliminary mapping categories motion, I guess, first, just in terms of order of business here. I've got a motion, a seconder on preliminary mapping categories. Then I'll make the next motion.
Sure. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so so can we have the motion read out? So with
is to delete the word new and insert the word preliminary in the motion before you. So the motion would read that council approve the preliminary mapping categories proposed by MEASC to describe Metchosin sensitive environments.
Correct, and I had second that. Okay, I call the question. All in favor? Carried. And
now I'd like to make an amendment to that amended motion.
Okay.
To add the words towards
an update of OCP map number 4.
So the amended motion would read, so the amendment is just adding the words towards an update of OCP map 4. So if it was amended, the motion would read that council approve the preliminary mapping categories proposed by MEASC to describe Metchosin sensitive environments towards an update of OCP map 4.
Okay, I will second that amendment. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Mayor Little.
Yeah, so I'd really like the words in principle as Councillor Shukin recommended. Would that be a friendly motion, or would you like me to amend the amended motion?
Excuse me,
just 1 moment.
You're out of amendments now. So the amended motion will be that the committee recommend council approve the preliminary categories towards proposed by MEASC I believe it's towards an update to map 4.
I'll read it right through if I may. That council approve the preliminary mapping categories proposed by MEASC to describe Metchosin sensitive environments towards an update of OCP map 4. I guess it should be that Committee of Whole recommends the council.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Preliminary.
Preliminary is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine.
Okay, so that's the motion. Do we need a seconder for that? Second. Sorry, second. Okay.
We're voting on the amendment towards an update.
You're voting on the second amendment that you've made now.
Okay.
And then you'd vote on the main motion.
Okay. So with the second amendment, are there any comments?
Yeah, if I could have a point of privilege, if the Deputy Corporate Officer could say that again, I didn't quite hear you. So we're going to vote on the amendment, and then we're going to vote on the main motion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, any more comments about the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. And now we'll vote on the motion.
You talk about?
Let's have a conversation about the full motion.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have to. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
go ahead. So I have to echo Councillor Shukin's words. I actually take offense that we're talking about either we're green or we're not. I mean, clearly with the advocacy letters that we've written, going to meetings, speaking at resolutions, we are interested in the environment, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to say this councillor's green, but this councillor is not green based on what we've actually done, the tangible evidence of our advocacy here at the table. And so my hesitancy with this was what was provided to us. There was no map provided to us. It's prefaced by saying the issue is OCP protection of sensitive environments. The introduction talks about the OCP, so I'm thinking they want to make OCP amendments without having a broad discussion with the community. And you can see when something like this is put on the council agenda, there was at least one member of the community that commented on it and gave some very thoughtful comments towards that. Imagine if it was out there in the broader community, how much input we would get. Regarding the categories, this isn't my area of expertise, and I can't say whether inland wetlands surface erosion potential should not be in. So surface erosion potential is, surface erosion potential, yeah, that's what it says, is not included in the new categories, but I would argue that we've seen erosion. Staff has been dealing with erosion at one of the farms along the ocean, and so erosion is a critical thing, and I think that is part of the sensitive environment, but it's not included here. So I think it should be as it was previously. I didn't have those. I was hoping to see. In terms of what those categories, like examples of them, sensitive ecosystems, CDC classification, that doesn't require a 100-page report. Threatened and endangered species, well, I can pretty well imagine what they are in terms of mammals and birds, reptiles, but I didn't know whether this also referred to the plant kingdom. That was confusing. Inland wetlands, is there other wetlands that are not classified as inland that we have in Metchosin that would be captured somewhere, if not in the inland portion. Marine shorelands, that's pretty indicative of what I think it should be, and riparian areas, that's a huge category. And does that overlap with inland wetlands and the marine shorelands? So that's what I was looking for, was fleshing it out, as well as what was the overall intent of this and what was the purpose of the new map. Of course, we want our OCP to reflect the Metchosin environment and the aspirations of our community in real time. As we all know, the OCP hasn't been updated, with the exception of last year because of the legislative requirements regarding housing. It has been updated in a long time. So that I'm not saying, and I think this is a very worthy project. It's just that I was disappointed with the proposal. It was hard to follow. And I'll leave my comments there.
Go ahead, Mary Lily.
So what I'm saying is, I don't know if these categories is all encompassing. The planner might know, or other planners that have expertise in this area, in data mapping and sensitive ecosystems. I do understand that some planners have more of an expertise in urban development and rural areas. So you're asking the wrong person. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, any more comments to do with the motion that's on the table that has been amended? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, I think that brings us to the end. Just wanted to also, before we leave, is commend the residents who did provide us with some input via the pinks that has been on our agenda throughout, and I think we have taken into consideration much of what they have said through our deliberations this evening. I always appreciate input, as well as those who spoke at the podium this evening as well. And thank you to my colleagues who are making better strides forward with some of our decisions. So with that, I'd like to call for an adjournment of the meeting, please.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.